Hey, it's Marty from 105.3 Hot FM in Grand Rapids, and you're listening to the Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com.
What's happening? This is the Friday Sports Riot at SportsTownChicago.com. Call the show so you can get on the air live on SportsTownChicago.com. 630-403-5200. That is 630-403-5200. And enough of the shenanigans. Ryan, who is on the phone line right now?
On the Illinois Center for Broadcasting hotline from ABC7. You can watch him on the weekend newscast.
Yes.
Rafer Weigel is on the line. What's up, Rafer?
What's up, Ryan and Ryan? How you guys doing?
Good.
We are doing good. So now, how has everything been at ABC7 since we last had you on the show about 6 weeks ago?
It's an ever-changing, fluid thing, isn't it? I think the hangover from the Hawks, the Hawks losing, it's just kind of started to sink in. And Mark and Jim and myself on that Monday then finally sat down and looked at when are we going to finally get to take some time off, because we had all these comp days and both we were all geared up and ready to go, guys. We thought for the next 10 days we were all locked and loaded. And, so we had a few comp days. I got one of them today. So you caught me on a day off sitting out back.
Nice.
So now we're just decompressing. And to be honest with you, counting down the days until we can start covering the Bears, because no offense to the Cubs and the Sox, it's just we're not really looking forward to covering those two teams when I think that the most we have to look forward to for either one is probably, 2 years away at the most. And for the Cubs, it's, the only story is really when are they going to renovate the stadium at this point.
Rafer, what is it like when you have this crazy ride with the Blackhawks? They keep coming back, they keep fighting adversity, and you think you're going to cover them in the finals, and then they give up a disappointing goal in overtime in Game 7 for the whole series or for the whole season to come to a crash. How disappointing is it as a fan and as a TV anchor?
Well, as a fan, obviously it's incredibly disappointing. I'm sure the fans can tell you. Because I don't think anybody within 300 miles of that stadium thought the Blackhawks were going to lose that game. For me, with some professional distance, obviously you're disappointed for the team and for the players, because you get to know these guys and you know them personally and you know the coach and they're good guys, and we're not up there cheering in the press box. We can't be, but we're human beings and we're emotionally invested in these individuals, and we want to see them succeed, and plus it's great for the town. So there's that. And then my wife and son left town to go visit. She went to go visit her mom in Las Vegas, Wednesday of last week, because I was 100% convinced I was going to be completely busy with the Stanley Cup final.
Right.
And if you're doing a Stanley Cup final in TV, you're on TV nonstop. Your morning show, midday, 5, 6, 10, it's round the clock. So I said, honey, get out of town. So I'm just sitting on my back deck right now, drinking coffee. I don't know what to do. I'll be honest. I went on the station on Monday because I didn't know what else to do. I was so controlled or just, I'm just so used to going in. I went in and they said, what are you doing here? I said, I don't know. I said, well, let's figure out our vacation. Okay.
Right. Do you think that the Hawks will re-sign Sheldon Brookbank?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm not sure. It was interesting how much Brookbank saw the bench in the postseason in favor of Roosevelt. Q likes to go with the veterans. I like Sheldon. I think he's good. But, defensively, this is where the Blackhawks need the most overhaul. Brent Seabrook's a great scorer. But, I lost count how many times the Kings were getting behind him. The defense is really an area where the Blackhawks need to improve, and that was a big difference with the Kings, is evident in the fact that their defender Alec Martinez scored the game-winning goal. So that's going to be an area that the Hawks really need to shore up. And they got to figure out a fourth line. Versteeg really wasn't getting the job done, and Marcus Kruger was just tired. He played more. I read a stat that Marcus Kruger played more NHL games than anybody else. Or more games rather than anybody else in the NHL, because he also played for Sweden. Right. So in the Olympics, so they were just gassed. So they need to do some restocking, but it's going to be tough because you got to give Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves that big contract, that Zach Parise sized contract. They deserve it. That's going to put them up against the cap. It's going to be some challenges, but you have to do that this offseason before you go into next season.
And also, what's your take on the play overall of Corey Crawford, and could he be getting too much criticism for his play in the Stanley Cup Western Conference Finals?
I've always felt that Corey Crawford gets way too much criticism from fans. I think it's way too easy. Somebody tweeted, blaming Corey Crawford for some of these losses would be like blaming Jeff Samardzija for some of the Cubs' losses.
Right. Crawford
didn't get any help. They weren't clearing the puck in front of the net. They like, it just goes back to what I said about the defense. The defense just wasn't there. And then, in game, I can't remember which game it was. It was Game 6 in L.A. that went to overtime. He let a couple of soft ones through. A year ago he would have crumbled. But he hung in there, and he kept his head about him, and he made some great saves at the very end and held on to win that game. And I think he was really one of the unsung heroes in the Minnesota Wild series. He really was a key factor in winning that series. So I'm a huge Crawford supporter. But apparently I'm one of the few. I'm very surprised how much criticism the guy gets. But I think people who, I'm not going to say they don't know hockey, but I think if you don't, he does let occasional softies get through, but so did Jonathan Quick.
Yes.
So, to me, that was a wash, but it was a push between those two goalies. And, so I'm a big Crawford fan, and I think he's only going to get better and better. He's really young. He's still not even hit the prime of his career. So I would agree with you that I think he just got a little bit too much criticism in this series.
Now, Rafer, I want to get your take on this. How do you think the Blackhawks will address the second-line center issue? How do you see this going down?
Well, I thought that second line when they went with Shaw, Saad, and Kane was brilliant. What a surge those three got. So, but no, Michael Handzus. Beyond that, he's too old. They're gonna have to get somebody out there. Ben Smith, could play center. I think he could. They could move him for the third line. But I think your top line is set. Your second line, I think that's Saad, Kane, and Shaw line. I think that's just money. How great was Brandon Saad playing with those two guys? It was pretty. I felt bad for Patrick Sharp that he got bumped down to the third line a little bit, but and I think Sharp took it to heart a little bit. Sharp's got an ego just like just like those guys. He wants to be the guy as much as anybody else, which is what makes him a great player. But there's no question they got to get somebody else. Michael Handzus, big fan of him personally, but the guy is I think he's just reached the end of his career. So they will need to go out and I think get somebody, unless they feel they can groom Ben Smith as a center. But I like Smith better on the wing.
Now, Rafer, what should fans take away from the season overall for the 2013/2014 Blackhawks?
I think that they have to look at this team and say they're still a dynasty. At the end of the day, Joe Quenneville was only able to roll 3 lines where the Kings were able to roll 4. They were outskated by the Wild. The Wild had a younger team and more energy in them because they didn't go to the Olympics, yet they still figured out a way to win. I think that this team overachieved in many ways for the amount of its depth. I just think it's a huge credit to them that they got this far, and they're one unlucky bounce away from being in the Stanley Cup final. And I don't think that the Rangers would have given him a hard time. I think the Rangers might have won 1 or 2, but I think they would have beaten the Rangers. Don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on.
So, it's to me, I think everybody just expects them to win because we're so used to them winning. We've been spoiled. They're like the Bulls of the 90s. And honestly, it's a lot harder to repeat in hockey than it is in the NBA. There's a lot fewer repeaters in the NHL than there is in the NBA.
Right.
So the fact that they were that close to doing it, to me, is a huge credit to Joe Quenneville, to Taves, to Kane, to Crawford, the whole team. So the Kings were a deeper team. That was just the difference. They were deeper. They had more depth. And, that's just going to be something the Hawks will have to address, but it's going to be tough if they're going to be up against the cap re-signing Taves and Kane.
And real quick, moving on to the NBA Finals, what was your take on last night's game between the Spurs and Heat as the Spurs took a 1-0 lead in the series?
Well, I'm not surprised how much, no pun intended, LeBron James is getting for the cramp thing. Everybody loves to hate on LeBron, and I'm one of them. I think LeBron whines too much about the fouls, and I'm a huge Michael Jordan. I was a Michael Jordan fan, so to me there's nobody better, and I don't like the comparison. to him, to MJ, but at the end of the day, I was at fault. And I mean, the guy had cramps, he couldn't play. If he could play, he would have played. I mean, so I think that I don't fault him for coming. I think that he will come back and still win. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not. I guess I understand how people want to, give LeBron flag for bowing out, letting his team down, as they say. But I think somebody said on Twitter something to the effect. It was actually, I was looking at Kyle Long's Twitter handle, and his brother Chris was tweeted, "Wow, it's amazing how many people have played through cramps in the NBA Finals here on Twitter." We that guy, we don't know what he was going. If he couldn't have played, if he could have played, he would have played.
Yeah, I mean,
that's just my take. So, and Greg Popovich is just one of the great minds in basketball, and it's amazing what he can do year in, year out with that team. San Antonio, it's just they're the model franchise, small market team. They don't, they don't have the superstars like the Heat, but they always get it done and always win.
Rafer, how nauseating are these LeBron James haters? Like, I would get it if it was 2010 and he just left the Cavs, but honestly, people just love to hate on him with these memes and these jokes. It's like, I feel like people don't appreciate watching one of the greatest players ever to hit the hardwood floor in the NBA. What is your take on that?
I would agree with you. I mean, look, I don't like the way he left Cleveland. I don't like the decision. I thought that was a very poor decision on his part. No, pun intended on that one. But I just, people are predisposed to hating certain athletes. It's just the nature of sports. Jay Cutler's another one. I personally do not like Jay Cutler as a human being. I don't like interviewing him. But re-signing him was the smartest decision for the Bears.
Yeah.
Just from a purely business standpoint, that was a very smart business decision by the Bears. Would I have rather have interviewed Josh McCown? Absolutely. He's much nicer, but he's not the better quarterback. So, at the end of the day, LeBron is always, that's sports, man. Fan is short for fanatic. And if you're going to love somebody, you're going to hate somebody. There is absolutely nothing that can happen to change the sports fan's mind. When they've made up their mind that they hate a guy, and you guys now doing this in professionally, or if you go on to do this professionally, that's going to be the thing that you have to learn how to do. And you guys know this when you do this professionally, is how to separate the emotion from what you're seeing. You know what I mean? Or at least compartmentalize it. You can still have those emotions. You can still be a human being. You can still dislike somebody personally, but you can't let that affect your judgment on what you're seeing them do on the court. And what we are seeing LeBron do on the court is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. So, I'm with you. But I just kind of laugh at all the criticisms the guy, gets. And at the end of the day, he's going to come back and they're going to win that series. I believe they'll win the series, no doubt.
Rafer, what did you think of Tim Duncan's game last night? Because if you ask me, that was beautiful basketball he played. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't over the top. He just knows how to get it done, and that's why he's he is the greatest power forward of all time. I think so. I think you're right. I mean, you look at it year in and year out. Like you said, he's not flashy. He's the perfect counterpart, or he's the perfect Greg Popovich player. Just not flashy, great defense, good fundamentals. It's just he is a joy to watch. And how long has he been in the league now? I don't even have it, like 17 years or
something like
crazy.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that he can still play like that, it's amazing. It's truly amazing. I think we've become desensitized to it in some degree because he's just been doing it for so long. So it's nice that you recognize that, Ryan, because he really is. I think you could say he's the greatest of all time. I really think you could statistically. I know some would argue with me if, go back over the years, but I mean, just in terms of his overall stats, I mean, you can't argue with the numbers.
And before we let you go, Rafer, where can people find your work online and on the television?
I will be on tomorrow. We'll be anchoring the 5, covering the sports on the 5 and the 10 o'clock news on ABC 7.
Yep.
And then hit me up on Twitter. I always say dumb stuff there, at Rafer Weigel. And I got a Facebook page at Rafer Weigel. I think it's ABC 7 or at Rafer ABC 7. I don't know, Ryan. You post there a lot. So, you always hit me up on social media because even on my days off, I'll tweet stuff that I probably shouldn't be tweeting.
Well, Rafer, have a good rest of the weekend, and it's always fun having you on the Friday Sports Riot here on SportsTownChicago.com.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Always
Thanks,
a pleasure.
Rafer.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
And that was Rafer Weigel. You can check him out on the weekend on ABC7. Call the show if you want to give your opinion, your take on what Rafer Weigel just said on SportsTownChicago.com. 630-403-5200. That is 630-403-5200. We will be right back on the Friday Sports Riot here on SportsTownChicago.com. Hang on.
The Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com.